Hey, hey, hey. Welcome in to Real Deal Sports Talk with me, your host, KP. Thanks for tuning in with me this beautiful Saturday morning. We're going to have some lovely weather here locally in Denver, Colorado today. That's where I come to you guys from. If you didn't know that, I am local here in Denver, Colorado, but I like to talk about sports all over the country. If you've been listening to the show, you know that by now. You know I'm a Lions fan, right? You know, I'm going to keep it real. I'm going to, talk about the teams, the sports, the things that we all have on our minds, the things that we're going to work and talking about. We're going to break it down. And we got a lot of that kind of stuff to talk about on today's show. Chris Rupert from thedirtcannon.com will also be joining us. We'll do our weekly breakdown of college football. And, we'll do we'll do a preview of the NFL games coming up tomorrow. We'll talk about what happened Thursday night for sure and the fallout that is occurring from that. And, we'll just hit on some other stories that are going around, basketball, football, baseball, things that are happening right now that I think need to be talked about. And you can choose to listen. You can choose to turn it off. That's up to you. That's the beauty of radio, right? And the beauty of my show, if you're listening to this live, you don't have the ability to skip forward through the show. But if you go ahead and get our app from the Google Play Store, you know what? You can skip through every show as you want and just listen to the parts that you want to listen to. If you follow us on speakerradio.com, okay, you go find the show there. You can skip through our shows that way as well. You'll also have access to all of our older shows if you'd like. You'll have access to chat with me during the show, send me messages. You can also, check out the Facebook page. I post a lot on the Facebook page from all different sources, from all different sports. If I feel like it needs to be out there and talked about, I'm going to put it out there. We also have our Twitter following over there at Real Deal KVP on Twitter. So, check us out, interact with us. We love interacting with the fans. It's great. Appreciate you guys very, very much. All right, let's get into some, I'm not big on guarantees in sports. I think guarantees in sports, no matter what level you're on, no matter what sport you play, they really put a lot of pressure on you. And if it's not an individual sport, that puts a lot of pressure on your teammates when you start making guarantees for victories or championships or stats or anything else along those lines. I'm not big on the guarantees. However, and I'm not going against this in this statement, but Todd Gurley has guaranteed a victory against Seattle this weekend. Now and Seattle will have Russell Wilson. He is scheduled right now to play coming off of that ankle injury that, everybody was worried he might be out for some time. Apparently he will be ready to go this week. But this is a LA Rams team. I think I called him St. Louis a second ago. This is an LA Rams team that was embarrassing Monday night against the 49ers. Just downright embarrassing. Shouldn't have been on the field if that's how they were going to play football. This is a LA Rams team that this week extended the contracts of their head coach, Mr. Mediocrity, and their GM, who, yes, he's brought in some talent, but this talent hasn't amounted to anything. And really, they haven't brought in much talent on the offensive side of the ball except for Todd Gurley falling to them because of his injury status. There's reports coming out this week that the head coach, Jeff Fisher, never really wanted to take Goff with that pick. Maybe that's what led to him being the third-string quarterback, now promoted to backup for this game. Maybe there is some organizational pressure to say, no, we drafted this kid number one. He's not riding the bench. He's not going to be inactive. At very least, he can be the backup, and the other guy can ride the bench and still be there to, look at plays and hold the clipboard. But that says a lot about your number one pick in your organization when people are being extended. There's talk that maybe the pick wasn't even wanted by the guy who's supposed to be running the team. They're not winning with all this talent, with a defense, mind you, that the last 2 or 3 years has been super athletic. And I thought would be dominant at points. Now in games, in drives, they have been. They have the ability to pick up a lot of sacks. They have one of the best interior defensive linemen in the NFL. But for whatever reason, This Rams team cannot put it together and get wins, or points for that matter. It's baffling to me. As a defensive guy, I see the way they play. And yeah, they lost some guys this offseason, but they still have a pretty solid front seven, especially anchored by Donald. If you got Donald, you can work off of that all around. They re-signed Brockers this week. He's solid. Quinn had a really good year a couple years ago when he got those 15 sacks. And then I don't know what's happened to him. I know he had some injuries. Maybe this year he bounces back. The Rams have to come out this week and play with some aggression. They have to come out and play with some pride this week. Those guys have to feel like, you know what, that's not our best game. I don't want to be looked at like a loser. I don't want to be looked at like a punk or like we're an easy game on the schedule. Now, does that equate to a win against Seattle? Probably not. Not in my opinion. I think the Rams do lose this week. Do they have the ability to play with Seattle? Yes, they've proven that over the last few seasons that they can play with Seattle. Either keeping it close, beating them. I think Seattle has one blowout in there. But for the most part, the Rams do play Seattle very well. Now, Seattle's great against the run. And right now, the only weapon it seems that is really got any momentum is Gurley, and that's just because of his bravado, not because he tore up the 49ers Monday night. So not four guarantees. I do hope for a good game. I hope to see the LA Rams actually amount to something more than just a team that has fans that like to fight everybody. So we'll see how the game goes tomorrow. Fallout from Thursday night's, I don't even know what to call that. Let's just throw it deep every play, see what happens. Forte had a decent game for the Jets. Play calling was just bad, especially for Buffalo. It's like the guy who helped them be one of the best rushing attacks or the best rushing attack in the NFL last year has forgotten what to do. He's not coaching the team right. And he went and found himself fired this week. Greg Roman. They let their OC go, and I don't know that I blame them. Now, it's early in the season, so it's almost like, didn't you know this during preseason and the offseason about this guy, who he was, how he called plays, what his philosophy is? So I don't know. I don't know that I agree with it as being such early in the season. I think you ride it out a little bit, let the team get into a regular season momentum, and then if it's not working, okay, you make changes like Detroit did last year. All right, calling in on the Real Deal Talk line, we have Chris Rupert. Chris, thanks for calling in. How you doing, buddy?
Doing well, Kyle. How are you?
Excellent, excellent. Great to have you in with us again this morning, talking some college football and, a couple LSU tidbits there also we'll get to in the second half. Let's get to some of the games, though. There's some big ones this week. Like you said, Week 3 promised a little more action than Week 2 did. And big game. Let's start off with the Ohio State OU. It's almost like the youth movement versus the returners. How do you see the Ohio State OU game going?
Well, it's going to be a lot of fun. First, I just want to point out that this is the first time in history of the AP poll that number 1, number 2, and number 3 each play a true road game versus a ranked opponent in the same week.
That is very cool.
This year already in college football has got numerous things that we haven't seen before, starting off with the amazing games in Week 1. But Ohio State and Oklahoma, pre-game mind games aside, the backup quarterback Austin Kendall, kind of saying that Ohio State has a really basic defense. It's going to be a fun matchup, and Oklahoma is going to try to attack the Buckeyes' revamped defense, with that loaded backfield that they got, Baker Mayfield, Samaje Perine, Joe Mixon.
Yep.
And then on the other side, the Sooners have got to try to slow down an Ohio State offense that has mostly played well, behind quarterback J.T. Barrett and the H-backs, running backs of Mike Weber, Samuel, and Dontre Wilson. Plenty of skill and talent involved as well in this game. It's going to be a huge challenge, I think, for a young Ohio State team on the road. the Buckeyes have the talent to escape from that kind of hostile environment with a win. However, DC3PO disagrees and gives Oklahoma a 69.7% win probability with a score of Oklahoma 29, Ohio State 22.
Wow, expecting a good game there for sure. Here's one that really intrigues me. One, because I like to follow Christian McCaffrey, but two, because it's normally a good game every year between these teams in the Pac-12. USC and Stanford. McCaffrey's kind of owned USC here recently. USC has a ton of athletes. Break this one down for us.
Well, few teams are as familiar with Christian McCaffrey as USC is. And, the USC lost to Stanford twice last year, 41-31 in the regular season and 41-22 in the Pac-12 title game that kind of created that Heisman buzz for McCaffrey. In that first game, USC kind of got off easy where he ran for 115 yards, caught 3 passes for 37 and averaged 19 in a kickoff return, and only finished with 249 all-purpose yards. It was that Pac-12 game where he just blew up with 461, all-purpose yards. And you're right, USC does have a lot of talent, but this just kind of like we keep playing that broken record. If it's Alabama or if it's Florida versus Kentucky, it's really hard to pick against McCaffrey at home, especially the damage that he's already dished out to the Trojans. So DC3PO has Stanford with an 88.4% probability.
Wow.
Stanford 38, USC 20.
All right, another good game there in the Pac-12 this week for sure. This is a good SEC matchup. Ole Miss has gotten the better of Alabama here recently. Now, we all seen what Alabama has started the season off as. Does Ole Miss still have enough in the tank to compete this year?
That's the question, right? And that's what everybody's going to tune in at 3:30 Eastern on CBS. I mean, historically, Alabama has crushed Ole Miss. I mean, they lead the series 47-11-2. And they only lost to Ole Miss back-to-back years only once ever. So when you consider the 19 SEC championships since Ole Miss last won one in '63, you've got that breakdown of, well, it's Alabama's defense, it's Alabama's freshman quarterback. It's an SEC road game. It's an entirely different scenario. I think Jalen Hurts is going to be is just fine against Ole Miss, is just fine against the atmosphere or whatever. It's going to be, his issues are going to be the moments, whether or not Alabama can actually roll him out like in bootlegs to get him comfortable. Because when you got a young quarterback like that, it's very important, especially a running quarterback that can throw like that. It's very important to get them comfortable in their feet, and Ole Miss's defense has got to keep him bottled up and make him uncomfortable like that. But it comes down to, Chad Kelly, Alabama's defense making Ole Miss's offense uncomfortable. Ole Miss does have a chance, but, I mean, Nick Saban losing to Hugh Freeze 3 times in a row, that's not going to happen, not in my mind. And DC3PO has Alabama at a 78.6% win probability with Alabama 30, Ole Miss 18.
Okay. That's kind of how I see it going, too. I think Alabama gets off on this one and reasserts their dominance a little bit, for sure.
But it'd be nice. It'd be nice, though. It's like we talked about before at the start of the year in the articles and talking that nobody's going undefeated this year.
Right. Yeah, I don't see that happening at all either. Alabama will fall, and I think it's going to be in a much more shocking way than to Ole Miss.